Hill.
That was a blast from the past.
It is. Nice, Leonard.
Well done. Well done.
You are really good.
Good stuff.
That's awesome.
Welcome to IoT Coffee Talk. How you guys doing?
Good.
Great.
Groovy, baby.
You must know that like tune like the back of your hand, right?
Sorry.
Tom.
I'm watching a board meeting here in Chicago, and we just got selected. Yes, good day. Good day for us.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
That's exciting. Congrats.
Thanks. It's exciting day. Thanks for having me on. I'll be happy today.
It's about damn time, Eric.
Yeah.
What did you get selected for?
The Metro Chicago railroad crossings. So they awarded the bid to ClearBlade. That's so
Awesome. And you're local,
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm local,
Let's
so
celebrate.
I don't know if I get any discounts when I go down into the city, but I'll be okay. We're monitoring the crossings.
It seems like ClearBlade just owns the railways of America.
You can never own the railways. You just hope to be a little piece of what they're doing, but it's been pretty fun. Yeah.
They are the rail IoT innovators.
Yes, yeah, it's a fascinating space, but
So I
Sorry,
meet
Andrew.
Eric on a very good day.
Yes.
Hi,
Yes,
Eric.
it's a good day. Hi, nice to meet you.
First time
Nice
to meet
watched your videos. I was just watching one before I got on to try to get myself up to speed with the group, and I hope I can add value. You guys are all pretty smart folks, so I'll just interject when I can.
Well, actually, I came across you, I think, in Clubhouse about a year and some ago.
Yeah.
So ClearBlade, even though we're just meeting today, it's not a new company to me, and
It's not a new one to me either.
I'm one of those people whom you didn't know and who admire what you do.
Oh, well, thank you so much.
You are very welcome.
It's a labor of love and 15 years of grind, right?
You have a great CTO who's made really, really cool shares on LinkedIn. See, I know.
Yes, yeah, he's dogmatic, he's smart. Robin, Aaron know each other well. They have some funny, healthy debates, but mostly, I think they mostly agree, to be honest. It's just semantics.
I think
hope
Andreea,
that's not the only chapter that you watch from IoT Coffee Talk. I hope you watch something else.
Oh yeah. No, I watched
there was something else. I like Aaron's use of Godzilla pictures is probably what seals the deal for me.
Yeah, he's creative. I had to have executive conversations because of that blog post, but that's a different story. I had to clean up on aisle 7 for some.
That's okay. This whole Coffee Talk show is one giant cleanup on aisle 7.
Okay, good.
For sure.
And I'm in the right spot.
You are in the right spot. We are a mess.
Well, thank you again for having me on. It's long overdue, Leonard, and I appreciate the invite.
Yeah. I mean, the door's always open, right? And wow, 8 people. This is amazing. Tom, good to have you.
And your voice, you're not.
Good to be back.
You could sound better, Leonard.
Really?
Yes.
Hold on, let me
Yes.
see. Yeah, Bonnie had me change my settings. How about now? Check 1, 2.
Not yet.
Well,
So,
He's kind of in a tunnel.
really? That's
better. Whatever
That's
you did,
better.
don't stop with what you're doing, Leonard. You're okay. Don't touch anything.
Oh my God. Okay.
You're fine. You sound good now. Yes. So the key takeaway is don't listen to Bonnie. She's nuts. You know what Bonnie wants you to do every time you have one of her talks? It's like you're going to talk a little bit about the tech or whatever, and then you're going to talk about tell me one of your favorite quotes from a movie, and tell me, that's what Bonnie is about.
I love it.
This episode is pretty hilarious. But we got into this big battle. You know what? I was the first to go, and I started everything off with privacy. And there were, I think, about 10, folks on the panel, and all the predictions ended up becoming related to privacy. But I think like the other 9 basically went counter to my point, where I was posing the hope that privacy is going to become increasingly important. But then the rest of them are saying, oh, the genie's out of the bottle. And it's like, well, the reason why people think that way is because we have people like you telling everyone the genie is out of the bottle, you can't put it back in. And it's like, no, Apple proved that people don't want to be tracked. We're becoming more concerned about privacy because we're learning about it. But when we tell people privacy doesn't matter, and we teach our kids that privacy doesn't matter, that doesn't absolve us from consequence. We're all still human as individuals and there's a difference between privacy and publicity, right? Yeah, there's some folks who are introverts like me who, seek publicity. That's different. And we might do it for different purposes. What we do on this show is to share and have honest conversations. But I thought it was really interesting to get into that it wasn't a debate, it was a presentation, but listening to other people and the way that they think about privacy. Anyways, so my audio is all jacked up because I was on that show. And
you're all jacked up, dude. It's interesting. Privacy on phones, even if Apple is doing a great job, don't be deluded into thinking you can't be tracked, because your good Ericsson friends here, like me and Andrea, know that we have call records, the CDR things, but every time you connect to every cell tower as you move through life. And so if someone needs to track you, maybe the police or the government, they won't call Apple, but they might call AT&T or Verizon or T-Mobile or Vodafone or somebody like that. And I don't want to go too deep into this, but if you're familiar with, now this sounds like a real downer. There was a crime that was committed at the University of Idaho a few months ago, and they were struggling to find out who did it.
Yes.
They found out by tracking the person's cell footprints and finding out that a particular person, because was in that area a lot for months because of cell tower records. Yeah. And they also tracked them all the way to Pennsylvania by cell tower trail breadcrumbs. So it's pretty interesting.
That's where I'm happy that we can track, right? Don't do bad things. We'll get you. I don't mind that, right?
Right. But only certain authorities that have that ability to access that information. And I think as a society, you arrive at a certain agreement that that's okay. And that becomes the privacy policy, right? So it doesn't mean that you have perfect privacy, that you can go and get away with all kinds of criminal crap. It does mean that, though, within reasonable bounds, for you to live a protected and control, a life that you kind of control yourself, that you have certain rights to privacy, and that entities, third parties that you engage with are obligated to tell you what they do with that information. What I don't find is cool is that there's these parties that a lot of folks don't know about that track you, and somehow you provide them that right through some very obscure legalese. And I think if we knew what we were giving up, we wouldn't opt into that. And that's what Apple proved. is that most people opted out when they instituted the ad tracking transparency function. And, yes, digital marketers will deny it. All these other, like the Facebooks of the world who depend on ad revenues, who depend on tracking, either explicitly or implicitly your person, they're going to push back on this stuff. And they're going to tell you privacy doesn't matter and that our kids have given up and they're posting their whole lives on. So, anyways, I kind of hope at least, as we have privacy discussion, we promote awareness, because giving up on privacy and telling people that they've given, it doesn't matter, it doesn't seem as, it doesn't seem like the right thing in my book. You should help them become aware of the risks, what privacy is, what entities do. Anyway, so we'll end it with that.
Yada, yada, yada.
Yeah. You triggered me.
That was deep. You guys noticed that when I joined, there wasn't like an IQ meter on Zoom and it was like at 210. And when I joined, it dipped to 90. And I'm like, wow. Yeah, and this is what I contribute. I bring the average so that we can go to the masses. It's like a level playing field here.
Thank you for leveling the playing field, bro.
You heard what I said?
No, I'm sorry.
No, I said, funny you mentioned this because we've been missing you the last couple of IoT Coffee Talks.
Yeah, sorry. I was doing, I was doing some independent consulting so I can try to make dinero like Leonard last. So I had a choice. It's like, a statement of work that might get me some money, or hear Leonard talk about privacy. It was an easy choice. Well, here I am. I'm back. I missed you guys.
It's good to have you back. So, Tom, have you made the move to Estados Unidos yet?
Not yet. So June.
Okay, June.
Yes. So
Florida, right?
Yeah, Florida. Yeah. In March, I'm taking a month out just to go and kind of travel and find my feet, etc. It's getting closer and closer, so I'm excited and a little bit anxious at the same time.
That's awesome.
All you need to know, Tom, is that whatever happens, if you're hungry on the road, you do not eat the hot dogs from the gas station. Okay. And if you don't do that, life in America would just be, it'll be fine. It'll be fine.
Actually, you might survive that, but don't eat sushi from a gas station.
Oh,
That will kill you.
Maybe just get gas from a gas station, right? That's the kind of vibe we're thinking of. Yeah.
Yes, and when you pull up there in Florida to get gas, say, "Could I have some petrol, please?"
Don't say that.
Well, I just had to try really hard to say gas instead of petrol just then, right?
I know. It's the thing. I know. You have to get into our bizarre vernacular here because we've screwed up everything. We've bastardized every way of talking. So there you go.
It was quite interesting what you were just saying, Rob, actually, about I don't want to dig up the privacy thing again because we could go on for ages about it, right? About the cell towers.
Yeah.
My worry is, and I've been speaking to a lot of people in EVs at the moment about just the tracking of EVs, right? And you're not going to need the cell tower anymore, right? Because you can just log straight into the infotainment system, into the ECU, and pick up the record. So it's just like, you're going to be really screwed no matter which way you look at it.
Absolutely. We're all screwed, but, whatever, So I wanted to take a picture because, Leonard always talks about how he is just Mr. iPad on the road now, doesn't need his laptop. And so this is what my setup is. I'm here at a conference and this thing works perfectly. So this is that newer iPad, just the plain iPad, the 10th generation, but it's got 5G, and most importantly, it has the camera on the correct side, on the landscape side, and it also tracks me, out of the box. And so, anyway,
I don't like that gimmick. I have the same feature. Look. It
yeah.
Whatever.
And my calendar feature, this look, it is environmentally friendly, and I can do things here. And I just keep printing them, man. I just keep printing them.
It's old
I
school.
love it. So since this is the first time to have Eric on the show, maybe, Eric, you should tell us about yourself and ClearBlade for people who don't know.
Sure. So thanks. Yeah. So I'm CEO of a company called ClearBlade, Internet of Things software company, and edge compute software company. Been around for 15 years, so a little long in the tooth, and doing that. My background is, and funny, I get to talk about this today at my high school, believe it or not. That I graduated it in '84. So I'm showing a picture of a DEC PDP-11 and a VT-100 that dates me, obviously. But I started my career in the late '80s at IBM as a programmer, air traffic control, mainframe systems, and then spent some time at Johns Hopkins Hospital in Baltimore, building a patient intake system in my 22, 23. And then I rejoined IBM in Chicago as tech sales back in the day. And then back in '94, I left and did my first, they didn't call it startup then. They just called it insane. But I just left IBM and landed it in San Francisco in October of '94, which turned out to be a pretty nice place to be if you're a tech person. And so built a company that's now a big public company, or relatively big services company called Proficient. Now based in St. Louis, but they bought my company. It's a longer story, but that's what brought me to Austin, Texas in the early 2000s. I spent 21 years in Austin, still love it, and founded ClearBlade in 2007, really ironically when IBM asked me to. And then I realized I didn't really like what IBM was doing around this stuff, so I said, let's build software to compete. And in general, I think IoT is more about cooperation than it is about competition in a lot of ways. We all have to work together. Again, it's been a long road, but I'm starting to see progress now. And you folks are a great wealth of knowledge and experience. And Rob and I have traded war stories over what we used to do back in the day, over 300 baud modems or whatever. That's me. My job really is to find people much smarter than myself and give them space to create, because I always think of myself in that early 20s head where I felt like I could do lots of things, but I felt limited by management. So I told myself, if I ever got the chance to lead people that they actually believed in what I was saying, let them create, because I actually think really good developers are artists, and you got to give them that space.
That's leadership.
Yeah.
So right there.
That's sad.
Yeah, thank you.
For the folks, for our, 2.5 billion listeners and viewers, when's the last time you had two people that can write COBOL in one Zoom call?
Oh my God.
Yeah, that's called backup retirement plan 1A, right? So done a lot of work on government systems. You heard about all the air traffic control stuff last week.
Yeah.
Still needs some work, by the way. That project was 600 plus people back in the late 80s, and I don't think that code ever saw the light of day. So, yeah.
Antiquated software.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I left is, I didn't want to be a cog in a massive project. I wanted to go do stuff that had an impact, and Johns Hopkins gave me that chance way back when. So it was pretty fun. So I think my developers will laugh. I used to know things. I used to be able to code. Now I know enough to say I know what they're saying. I know when they're BSing me, and I know when they've got a great idea, so I can help guide, but they're much smarter than I ever was when it comes to coding.
So, hey, Eric, how was CES for you? We met up with you. We had that grand thing at what was the name of that restaurant that we went to?
Oh gosh, it starts with a C.
Carmine's.
Yes, Carmine's.
Yeah, Ragusa. Yeah.
Carmine Ragusa. Oh, good. That's a good old.
Remember that?
I go from rags to riches. Yes.
Wow. You're singing. We're gonna pick a tune, and then we're gonna when we do our terrible karaoke segment.
God, you'll love me there. I love that stuff. But I thought CES was interesting. I didn't know we needed so many robotic lawnmowers, but there's lots of them. And any device that you ever touch your body to that can get your heart rate, and you guys saw it all. It's a toilet seat, it's a bra, You know, sometimes you could use both. I tried it. And there was one device that's not safe for work, so I can't really say what it does. Let's just say the name of it was called Handy. If you saw that device, it was a device if you're lonely and on the road in mail. Let's just say.
Which convention were you at?
That was CES, I swear to God.
Well, just remember that, AVN, it goes against apps, so it was just leftover.
Hotel.
I spent a year doing improv comedy in Austin, and that sometimes bites you in the butt, because I went up to the people in the booth. I said, "Hey, is there like a demo room I could try it out?" And they escorted me off the area. So
that's awesome.
I saw, there he is. A lot of electric vehicle stuff, right? That's interesting. Everyone doing electric vehicles, and kind of like the future of showering, right? I saw a lot of future of how do you take a shower, a nest shower, which is interesting. But I always find CES fascinating, and we normally don't run in that space. Like, again, I'm doing big infrastructure stuff, but we're finding ourselves now with a lot of new connected product companies that are consumer based. And so it's a lot more interesting for me to see what's coming and where people are focusing. I think the energy stuff is really fascinating, the electric battery stuff. What I'm seeing now is a lot of interest in energy and connecting things that help improve the way we go get energy, whatever the source, and then transitioning more to renewables. That's a fascinating space.
Yeah. That's a great point. I'll just share something. One of the things that everyone talks about the cars and how it looked like an auto show. One of the things that I saw take a dramatic leap was on the charging infrastructure side and how complex that is. I don't think people appreciate how crazy this new infrastructure is going to have to be, and all the technologies and instruments and applications that have to be developed and enable this new infrastructure to become viable. And if there's a place where ClearBlade might see an opportunity going forward with CES, that's probably one of them.
I agree with you. I actually ran into this funny story. A friend of mine hadn't seen in years, who moved from Austin to Boston, who's CEO of a wireless charging company called Witricity, right? And we had a good discussion about
Alex Cruzen.
Yes, Alex Cruzen. Do you know Alex? He's a great guy.
I do know Alex, yes.
We used to co-office together when we were doing some venture capital stuff in early days at ClearBlade. So he's a friend and an investor in ClearBlade. I'm happy to have him. And it was good to catch up with him.
That's awesome. Alex is a good guy.
He's a good guy, yeah.
Absolutely. Wow. Yes, lots of cars at CES, lots of tech companies showing off cars that they made somehow. Yeah. I saw the Qualcomm car, the Sony car, Bosch had parts of cars. I think my big takeaway at CES was cars and South Korea. Yeah, for real. Yeah, I thought Korea as a country dominated the show, to be honest with you.
And 3D printers everywhere I looked. It's a 3D printer. Oh my gosh, those 3D printers, you couldn't swing a dead cat without hitting a 3D printer.
Really? Okay. Yeah, I didn't see that. I just saw that chocolate one and I got hungry. One that makes artisanal chocolates. Yeah. That's curious because 3D printing has struggled for quite some time, especially in achieving any of the early aspirational stuff. Because 10 years ago I did research on additive manufacturing and all that stuff, and we were looking at the whole 3D printing space and all the technologies, and the applications haven't really hit mainstream the way that people wanted 10 years ago.
Okay, but let's say on the consumer. Let's defend it right away, because 10 years ago, additive manufacturing, what was the pitch? If you need a part and you're in the aerospace industry, you can just print it right here. It will totally fly. Well, no. So again, that's another victim of marketing getting way ahead of the capabilities. Now there are tons of great uses, in additive. There are people that are making things on the fly and they work and they last, but not what we were hearing, the first time we started hearing about this, which I think anyone that was paying attention, especially in the aerospace claims, is like, have these people ever taken a material science class? Like, it doesn't work. But anyway, it's another victim of it. But glad to see that. At least it's getting into schools. I think I talked to all of my friends. Like, everyone has one that's cool. The kids are getting used to it, so they're thinking of new ways of tinkering with 3D printing. So that's a positive. But sorry, Leonard, you triggered me with hyphen yes from a decade ago.
You know what? It works for chocolate.
No argument.
But the narrative was cool, David, when they talked about that. It wasn't reality, but because they talked about doing it in space too. Like, we're up on the, or like, let's say you're astronaut Matt Damon and you're trapped on Mars and you need to build stuff. No problem. You're golden. You can build a new habitat or something and become a farmer.
Or potato peels.
Exactly. It's all about potatoes and you know what. So speaking of farming, I'm at the Vision conference in sunny Glendale, Arizona, which is a suburb of Phoenix. In fact, my hotel is right next door to the football stadium where the Arizona Cardinals play, and it's where the Super Bowl is going to be. And so this is an agriculture 4.0 conference. And I'm sure for all of you and many of our listeners, you've been beaten over the head with industry 4.0 now for about a decade from our friends in Germany. And you're probably going, what the heck is agriculture 4.0? And so everybody's got to have their 4.0, right? Or something, to shoot for. Agriculture doesn't get as much love as smart factories, oil and gas and things like that. But, you've probably heard me preach to no end the challenges faced by our whole planet, by the most essential thing we need actually to be alive: food, water, that kind of stuff, right? And so, it's been interesting hearing the different presentations from people who live and breathe this all the time. Obviously, we were super impressed at CES by the keynote from John Deere and saw their giant machines with the long booms going across and how they can plant seeds and shoot in just the precise amount of kickstarting fertilizer, because we're trying to reduce inputs, just like in a factory, right? Factory has raw material inputs, make a widget, you got your output. Farm is the same thing. But what are the inputs? Water, fresh water. Only 1% of all water on the planet Earth is actually fresh water. 70% of that is used by agriculture. And you may have noticed some droughts around, maybe. And there's some floods in other places. Fertilizer. We've been doing synthetic fertilizer from a long time, from the famous, but maybe unknown to our audience, the Haven-Bosch process to create synthetic fertilizer. We use lots of our fossil fuels. It takes a lot of energy. Actually, it takes, I read 5% of all natural gas on the planet is used for this process to create synthetic fertilizer. It's all the nitrogen thing, right? And ammonia. The only reason we're able to feed the population we have today is actually because of that process, to get the growth we've had and all the other things, and genetically modifying stuff. So it's really interesting. I've been here with lots of researchers from universities, people who are farmers, people in the space. And so we feel like we may have run out of gas. There's this thing called GEM, G-E-M. The G is for genetics. And we've been tinkering with the genetics of crops for a long time. Obviously, Eric knows about this, being in Illinois. Illinois is a big row crop state. And so to feed more people, to produce more people, to make hardier crops that can survive in weird environments. But we've kind of run out of gas on the genetic side. The E stands for environment. And so that's sunlight, water, the weather, which you can't control, and things like that. And then M is management. And so you can imagine now we're going to focus a lot on that M, the management part, to do this precision agriculture. And so anyway, reduce, just the right amount of water, because There's not as much around as we used to have, or at least fresh water. And of course, people always jump up when I say stuff like they go, well, actually, the Earth has exactly the same amount of water today that it had a million years ago. It didn't disappear. It's just somewhere else. And that's a true statement. It's just our ability to get to fresh water or create fresh water. Obviously, there's a lot of countries that have lots of desalination plants to do that. But yeah, so we got this whole nitrogen thing we got to figure out. But yeah, management, precision agriculture, reduce, pesticide, herbicide, stuff like that. So anyway, if you're into that weird part of the world, I know it's not sexy like manufacturing, but it's a critical thing. Only 2% of the population makes all the food for the whole planet now. 100 years ago, all of your ancestors were farmers of some kind. Everybody used to be in farming, right? And now almost nobody's in farming. Yeah. And it's because of technology. And we try to turn farms into factories, right?
Yeah, I'm fascinated with that stuff, Rob, because I'm lucky. We've got a customer startup in the LA area that called OptiHarvest that does this. They do shields for growing crops. And, that's what I love about IoT. I don't need to be an expert in agriculture or in rail. I just need to be a nerd that creates good software, have good, really smart people. But you learn so much about what they're doing to improve output, right? And if you can flatten the curve on, hey, look, we've got software that allows you to connect these sensors, connect these devices you're making that can measure the water. And then you start to see them put these things in all sorts of farms, or in this case, it's California. It's fascinating just to learn about their business and know that you have some part in helping the outcomes there. So I find it fascinating. The other one is water, which we do for this. We should take a field trip. This is for Napa and Sonoma, right? Russian River, where it's basically a company that has water cleanliness and purity that they're delivering to all the wineries in that area. And really, all our stuff is doing is measuring the pumps and the devices that make that allow them to manage that process so much better. And again, it's another area I'm fascinated with is water. I've learned more about water through that in a project in Brazil that does the water around Rio de Janeiro.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Fascinating stuff. And it's if you're connecting a water main, or if you're connecting a drone or connecting a sensor that's connected to a device, it's all just IoT. It's all data streaming somewhere, and
it is
science use it.
And when you talk about when people kind of go, well, what is agriculture 4.0? Well, IoT is right at the center of it, and so are digital twins. Yep. And emerging AI and things like that, robotics. We've talked about, the water thing is interesting because not only do we need to produce 50 to 70% more food by 2050 because of the population, but we actually need 15% more fresh water than we have today, which that's going the wrong way right now. Yeah. And so, it's pretty interesting. So I did a session. I was on a panel discussion. We talked about using digital twins for crop modeling. And I know that sounds really esoteric. And so, I was joined by some really smart people. One of them, this woman, she's works for AquaSpy, and they're kind of soil moisture deal and putting that on networks. And then a PhD from UC Riverside, who's, we have a lot of agriculture focused universities. And the one with the flag behind Eric is the primary one actually in the United States. Purdue is probably one of the leaders in pushing what's possible in agriculture, because if we didn't have all those PhDs trying to figure all this hard stuff out in the background, we'd be up a creek. And so Purdue is a leader amongst all these ag focused, PhD programs. It's pretty amazing. But we talked about modeling soil and crops and that whole gem thing I talked about and putting it all together. And so introducing the idea of using digital twins to do that modeling now. And then, of course, IoT is the plumbing that feeds the twin, right? And then you do your analytics against the twin. So, really interesting stuff. A lot of great people here trying to do some really good stuff.
Rob, one of the biggest growth areas that we had in our business last year was vertical farming.
Yeah.
And specifically when you speak about fresh water, so aeroponic systems within vertical farming, right? So using the precise amount of water required at that time. And I think that goes on to what you say about freshwater shortages. If you can refine aeroponics through sensors and knowing just the right amount, it's a way forward. They've been hit quite hard actually because of the energy crisis and issues around vertical farming. Right, it's been a big blow. But from a staffing perspective, it made up like a quarter of our requirements. Right, it was all different vertical farming initiatives. So yeah, it's definitely growing. Certainly in Europe, anyway.
Yeah, it is growing fast here. There's a lot of VC investment in vertical indoor farming. The thinking behind all that is, some people call it like controlled something environment, CAE or something like that. But anyway, same idea. But it's because as the world is getting a little wilder outside and less coherent, at least in a building, maybe you can control the amount of light, the amount of water, the nutrients, and you recycle the water in those deals, because I work with some of them, and that's where IoT sensors come in as well, because they need you to monitor the nutrient levels in the water as it's being recycled. Are those nutrients degrading over time? Because we need to keep those up. But the cool thing about this with indoor vertical farming, using the LED lights and everything like that, is instead of getting one harvest a year, you might be able to get 4 harvests per year. And this is the kind of things we need to feed more people. And those indoor vertical farms are closer to the cities where people live, or they may be in the cities. Yeah. So, because what's the other element that we have to deal with? It's the supply chain. Most of us are focused on supply chain of getting cars and chips, but the supply chain from the farm to the cities where most people live, and you've all seen the stats. In another 20 years, there's going to be almost nobody living in the countryside. Everybody is moving to the cities. And so we've got to find ways to push that food production closer to where everybody is, so that we don't have, and you guys are laughing about something.
Yeah.
I must.
No, well, here's why. Because you said that people moving to the cities, and Stephanie, I heard it. She's like, hell no.
Exactly.
And I'm laughing because my city is San Francisco. No one's moving into San Francisco.
Nobody's moving to San Francisco. That used to be a cool place to live in the 90s.
Oh yeah, awesome in the 90s.
No, hey, it's still cool if you're making Tom White money. Okay, it's
the 90s was fun. I had more hair. It was great. But yeah, it's not the same as it was back then.
Yeah.
But Stephanie's out on the ranch and laughing at all of us in the cities.
The big topic here is everyone's starting their own chicken farms because eggs have gotten so freaking expensive, and so it's just like running rampant. Everyone wants to go buy and set up their own chicken pens, and no one wants to pay for those expensive eggs. And so it's a big thing here. Everyone's looking at how do we grow and do more. Like, we have a greenhouse here on our ranch, but it doesn't have the cover on it. It blew off, 10, 15 years ago. And my husband's like, maybe we should get that thing back up and running because we might need our own food production out here.
Who would have thought chickens and eggs is where the money's at now? People are leaving San Francisco and moving to the farm.
We have
why not
here on eggs at Costco? I mean, no eggs days. It's crazy.
Have you seen the memes on the internet? Now holding the dozen eggs, or he went to Jared and opening up the diamond ring box and it's an egg.
Oh my gosh!
It's funny. Maybe I should fly directly to our nearby ranch, you Stephanie, and because we used to have chickens when I was growing up there, along with the cattle and sheep. Maybe it's time to get back after it. Who knows? But remember earlier in the pandemic, remember when lumber was crazy expensive and people would show memes on the internet of the big logging truck, and they go, oh, there goes a billionaire, driving by. Of course, when I see logging trucks, which I do frequently where I live in the Seattle area, because it's logging country out where I am. And I always think of that movie, Final Destination, to be honest with you.
Oh gosh, yeah.
When I'm on the road, remember that scene?
Yep.
Comes right into your car.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of farming, one of the big things that I've been noticing, well, I don't know why, but I've been on this newsletter or distribution list, but I get all the latest and greatest technology in the marijuana growing industry.
I'm sure it's by accident, Stephanie.
Yeah, I think it's because I bought the domain Lone Star Homegrown a long time ago.
There you go.
And so in terms of like the tech and IoT and the sensors, and like if you go to one, Rob, I suggest that you go to one of those conferences next, because what they're doing in the growing industry there is so far advanced in terms of vertical farming, sensors used for moisture control and humidity and indoor versus outdoor and the lighting and all of that. So it's crazy, the stuff I've been reading on that. And I guess I probably should open my own, like once Texas becomes, a marijuana legal state, I should probably get into that business because it sure is interesting.
I think you need to start
legal.
What, David?
I'm glad you clarified legal.
Yes, legal. Yes. Hemp is legal.
Stephanie, I think you should start preparing now, laying the groundwork. The roof you need to put over your thing out there for the chickens. You need to prepare your cannabis.
That's
get
right.
the infrastructure in place now, so that as soon as it passes the bill in Texas to be legal, then you can hit the ground running. And
I'm sure those satellites are going to say, "Hey, the Atkinson Ranch, they just now covered that greenhouse. We need to start watching them."
Yes.
But you can also deliver via helicopter, right, Stephanie? You guys.
That's right.
You have like first class service there.
And there's a business opportunity because I think the market is ready for chickens that are eating marijuana. The flavor profile on Texas barbecue will never be the same.
Oh my God.
Pot chicken, and we can go like $38 a pound. It'll be the new ribeye.
The new ribeye.
The new ribeye.
You come here, IoT Coffee Talk, for disruptive business ideas that will make you zillionaires overnight. You're welcome.
I just watched that movie, The Menu, last night. It sounds like a course in that. If anyone has seen it, it's a crazy movie.
I heard it was good.
It was dark and funny and weird. So if you like dark, funny, and weird.
Is that the one with Ray Fiennes?
Ray Fiennes, yes.
Okay.
Is that on Netflix?
It's on HBO, I believe.
Okay.
But
I'll check it out.
I don't know if you do movie reviews here, but I give it a thumbs up. That was good.
Okay.
That's awesome.
Hey, Mark, it's illegal on the show not to say anything and be on mute the whole time. You have to say something.
I already say something, but I'm just learning. It's something good if you don't have anything interesting to share, to just learn from various people.
Which is really
such a great lesson.
Yeah.
Mark, whenever I was in Spain, it's been quite some time but what I noticed that was so different in the States is that the food seemed way fresher and way more organic and a lot less expensive. Like everything, like the meals at some of the nicest little hole in the walls and then the wine was so cheap. So what are they doing differently in terms of production and farming there that everything's so
socialism?
Super expensive.
Socialism. Oh.
I was like, $10 and I could have one of the finest meals and a whole bottle of wine and nothing. And it's nothing.
You know what? European Commission decide to subsidize agriculture in Europe. So instead of investing in or investing in culture, we invest in agriculture. Yeah. So even they pay farms to just destroy the food that they grow.
Yeah,
because of too much food, but taxes in Europe. So I think I read like 80% of the food in Europe it's subsidized.
Wow.
Okay.
But that also means that there's price controls, so there's no gouging. It's like, for example, a baguette in France will cost you the same everywhere, right?
Well, you're talking about France. France is a
No,
different.
just one
Change the
example.
price of something in France, you have a riot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we know, but one way or the other. But the point is that, in this case, a mandated government subsidy is pegging the price of a consumable at a point where no one gets gouged. And matter of fact, it will be illegal, if I'm correct, for you to sell a baguette above the price that's posted, unless you're delivering a service. So when you're in the say you're in the mountains and you're staying at a resort because you're skiing, there's no bakery in the lobby, but they'll bring you a service where you can order your bread and the next day, and then so now you're paying extra for a service, but the price of the food is, it's affordable for the masses, and it's better quality for many reasons. And put butter.
So now this 2023 in Spain, at least, they decreased the VAT, the taxes of eggs and flour and something else. But yeah, it's they decreased from 21% to 5%. So bread as well, I think, that's affected. So
interesting. Stephanie, as you bring that up, it's not always just what's going on the farm that makes the food in Europe healthier than the US. It's actually what happens after that. The US has tried so much to make all of our processes like some specialized factory. And so we have highly processed food in the United States for the masses to be just blasted out there. And the food on the farm actually started out great. And then we screwed it up by going through a factory and processing. And that's what's killing people, is this highly processed food.
We've seen this massive trend over the last 5-6 years where farm to table restaurants, farm to table is become such a trend in the United States. It's almost like we've really gotten tired of this processed crap that's being put into our kids' bodies, our bodies, and it's like, what are we doing to prolong our lives? We're just like cancer, sickness, illness.
I mean, it is a trend, but it's still not that much, right?
But you know what? It's a crime that you just have small farms barely getting by and closing the shop every single day because there's no profits. And I think Rob talked about it, many moons ago. But there's some good examples in the cattle industry. Like when you talk to the actual rancher who's doing all the work, the racing, taking all of the risks. Everything could go wrong, and they're out, but keep none of the profits. Like that is, but it's I don't know. It's our capitalistic society, right? I already made a socialist joke. Let's go the other way.
Where's John Cougar Mellencamp when you need him, right? Blood on the scarecrow, blood on the plow. Man, I went to school in Indiana. But Farm Aid, all that stuff.
Farm Aid. I remember Farm Aid.
Yep.
Yes.
Willie Nelson out there.
Yes, Willie Nelson.
Yes. Speaking of marijuana.
Yeah.
Speaking of marijuana.
It's worked for him. He's still around.
Yes,
He's still around. And sometimes you don't pay taxes. Hey,
you forget. You forget.
Medicinal.
What year is it now? I thought it was still 74.
Exactly. Oh my gosh. No, but that's so interesting. David, there's an analogy to this. You're the producer of the first thing, the cow, because you're right. I remember we buy some of these cool tenderloins from this steakhouse in Buffalo Gap, Texas, which is outside of Abilene, and they sell it for a lot of money. But this backstory of the steakhouse is the guy was a cattle rancher, the Perini family. And over a time, this was a few decades ago, they were getting less and less money for their cattle, and it was becoming a less profitable business. And a buddy of his said, you need to move upstream, or as we would say in the tech industry, further up the stack, to get more profits. And so he got out of raising cattle and opened a steakhouse. And this is just like, Intel or ARM, whoever's making the chip, but then we build the computer around the chip, and we build these other things, and they sell for way more. And the person who's making arguably the most important part, maybe the chip or whatever, they go, but wait, what about us? This is the most important. And it's like, oh, well, too bad, and so sometimes the core ingredients of the most important things in the world end up being the cheapest part. for better or worse, the steak is being sold for $72 at a high-end steakhouse, but it has no bearing in how much that rancher got for that cow, that steer, right? And so
our family has relatives that live in Midland, and they own Midland Meat Market, but they also have their own cattle, and they raise cattle. Now where they started kind of filtering through all of these just different ways and how they could touch the market. They opened up their own meat market in Midland. They distribute to all of these different, warehouses, grocery stores, chains. And then they started making a lot more money by selling their, high-end prime steaks to all of the high-end restaurants in New York. Then they started investing in those restaurants in New York. Then they started opening some of their own restaurants in New York. And so they just kept following the trail. And we've just noticed that how much that Midland meat market has grown into this massive operation. And they're doing so well because they've kind of followed that whole supply chain to see where things are going, where the money is. It's interesting.
Follow the money.
But same happens in Europe, right? You go to Germany and they have the best Spanish tomatoes, for example, and tomatoes in Spain sucks. But if you go to Germany, they just pay double for the Spanish tomatoes, and they're
Germans know how to do grocery stores. They own them all, right? I mean, they do it in the U.S. I don't know.
Stephanie, what you said is because obviously I've been spending a lot more time with farmers and folks the last few years doing this stuff, and
eating steak.
There is, yeah.
We know.
But the talk track is, because you're right, we've gone through obviously you have mom and pop farms that are struggling, and you have these giant corporate farms, and you also have this other weird phenomenon of private equity firms in New York buying up farmland all over the country and buying up water rights, which kind of gives you a clue as to what they're seeing down the road, right? And but to be more successful in farming or ranching, this notion of you going direct to the customer and you building your own brand is a thing. You started seeing more of these steaks. Oh, this is a rattlesnake, blah, 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 from Idaho steak, or this is whatever. That didn't used to exist. I mean, we always had Omaha steaks, right, that you could order and stuff like that. And so building your brand or having a way for people to come to your farm to buy your stuff, because to be successful, they're finding that the only way they can really make it is literally going direct, which seems counterproductive. Usually we're trying to find distributors to help us sell. But in a low margin thing like that, they're having more success. And anyone who saw one of the most recent episodes of Yellowstone, actually, before they did their half-year break, what's that all about? They were talking about even though the Dutton Ranch is so big in Montana with all this cattle, they're not making any money. Mm-hmm. But Beth found out, she's like, yeah, well, here's this ranch in Texas, and they got a whole website, and they're selling direct, and they're doing all this stuff, and they are killing it. And maybe that's what the Dutton Ranch needs to do. And I'm so glad that we found a way to bring Yellowstone into this conversation.
Yeah.
Yellowstone and Willie Nelson. But
I love Beth.
With the direct-to-consumer bit, I mean, like, I hear you, but that's going to take a consumer base that's aware that this exists and seek these ranchers out, right? To almost like create it. We just reached out to our a CSA farm in Oregon that we've been buying for the last decade, and they're closing up shop. And again, like, really good stuff, but not enough. There's the doggo. But how do we? I guess what I'm trying to say is there's probably not a lot of know-how. For that ranch, or maybe that, they don't have interest in, building something new because they've always done it, done something for the same way and it's been okay. And then there's the gap between, do I have the knowledge and desire to do this? And then on the consumer side, am I looking for this type of, direct to consumer, help the rancher, small business? And then in the middle, I'm just going to guess that there's 4 companies that own 90% of the cows in the U.S.
Yeah, because something that I, as a tourist, discovered in the U.S. is that it's cheaper to eat in a restaurant than go to a supermarket and just buy the same food and cook it yourself. Why is that happening?
Well,
That's interesting.
I guess it depends. It depends what it is. I mean, I don't think so. If we're doing fast food, maybe. Like, yes, I think we can all get a cheeseburger at any of the chains for under $2.
No, but I don't mean McDonald's.
No, not under $2.
It depends on the grocery store, right? It depends. If you're going to really, really high end, like the Central Market type, it's expensive.
You know what's popped into my head, David, is no doubt about it. We follow this line of thinking. The rancher, the farmer says, we're going to go direct. And they say, well, I guess we need to build an e-commerce website. And now you have ranchers trying to figure out search engine optimization.
Right.
And then they want to do connected cows, which, by the way, we've done. It's insane. Yeah.
Well, at Ericsson, about 10 years ago, we're in 2013. 11 years ago, a customer of ours in Wisconsin was really interested in doing connected cows to figure out exactly when cows were ready to be milked.
Yep, ruminated too. Yeah.
And they have the ear tags, the tags.
Yep. We were doing this with a company in Germany. Yeah. It was
sensors on cows. It was 10, 11 years ago.
Yep. It was about the same time.
Big application.
Yeah. And
one of the this was not IoT, but I helped out with it was actually a flip phone with a brew or WAP based GPS locating thing
and
tied to a collar. And this is how this rancher in somewhere in Southern Oregon was following cows. I mean,
that's IoT, David. It's a thing, and you're connected to it.
It is. It was a thing,
and it's connected.
What is an IoT?
We would joke, hey, if you want to place a phone call to that cow, the functionality is there.
And if the cow answers, then you got something to sell.
Yes,
exactly. And if you want to be really successful in connecting all those cows, make sure that you use Google's IoT Core platform.
Oh my God!
It'll never go away. It'll never go away.
23rd of August. Yeah,
use it because it'll end up.
It goes right here. To Eric.
And weren't they at one point in time trying to capture the methane from all the cow poop?
They were.
They still do.
Exactly it.
Yeah.
No, it was fascinating stuff.
I've seen video clips of activists saying we need to shut down all farming and ranching because that's causing the most climate change. I'm like, okay, well, that'll help things because we'll be dead too.
Yeah.
Which is where we would bring Rick Bellotta back into our deal, where he was like, yeah, we just need Thanos to snap his fingers and wipe out half of the Earth's population, and that solves most of our problems.
I'm sad that Rick's not on. I expected that fire and brimstone.
There's no shortage of fire and brimstone with Rick, and we love it. We love it.
Yes.
Absolutely. He's here to stir the pot on LinkedIn.
Well, he knows his stuff. I mean, he's busy. He's been there, done that.
Yeah. He's busy recruiting good folks from Microsoft. Unfortunately, that's what he's probably doing today.
Yeah.
Tough day today.
If you like and comment enough of his LinkedIn stuff, you'll get alerts when he does anything, which I do, which is just always, I'm like, I cannot wait to go see what he's doing and saying, because it's like, it's my entertainment for the week.
Yeah,
it is.
I like the fact that he doesn't sugarcoat anything. He's bold. That may not always agree, but he's bold. I like people that take a stance.
His style is awesome.
Yes, absolutely.
How are we going to learn if we don't? Like Leonard, when you started at the beginning, sometimes people don't agree with us, and sometimes we're wrong, right? Like we're not omnipresent here, but like if you don't debate it, how do you figure it out, right? I think it helps to have that healthy debate.
Oh, yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Well, an IoT Coffee Talk is all about like just complete transparency and honesty, which I think a lot of folks that get on these tech podcasts, you don't get that, and you're going to straight shooting.
I'll tell you I'll tell you where the name ClearBlade came from. It means cut through the BS. I came up with it back in 2003
yes.
Very cool. As an engineer, I used to get so annoyed with just the BS marketing and the talk. I'm like, let's get to real and stop lying to one another. And we're all not perfect. We're all not great. All our software isn't going to solve all the world's problems. We're part of an ecosystem, so we've got to work together on this stuff.
True.
You're so right. And what a lot of people don't realize is sometimes Eric has some really funny things that he puts on LinkedIn that would be like Rick in the past. Referring to, I remember one distinctly, a reference to Batman and the word ClearBlade. And I think he was making, you probably won't remember the third Batman movie where, it's the ClearBlade that goes slowly through the ribs. Remember, when
it's like Dune, right?
Cotillard is doing the blade through through the seam in his bat suit.
I got it wrong. I thought ClearBlade came from you guys have 3D printed a transparent silver blade so that I can see the CPU nodes in there without getting too close to the rack. But I was wrong.
It was 2003. I could get the URL cheaply, and it sounded cool, and I could just
badass.
I know, because when I hear the word blade, I think about servers and networks. Yeah.
I think of Wesley Snipes for some reason.
Oh, Blade!
Yes,
Blade.
I would love to have Wesley Snipes on my staff. He'd be awesome.
I still have nightmares about Blade 2 with those weird creatures that were worse than the vampires.
Yeah.
I think of Ruben Blades, but in Spanish, Ruben Blades, one of the greatest musicians of any generation.
Yeah, he is. He was.
Yeah. There you go. Hey,
Guido Fuente is going to be dead, and you're going to say, "I've been listening to him for years."
I have, but he's good. Like he's like early 60s. I think he's got ways to go.
Okay.
Well, Jeff Beck, rest in peace. Yeah, dude. How is it that you guys, source some of the greatest musicians in the world? I just don't get it. It's amazing. UK just pumps them out there.
Yes.
It's because it's always raining. Yeah. We have to make ourselves.
Seattle. That's where the Seattle stuff comes too, right?
Maybe you're right.
Nothing else to do but
nothing else to do.
I tell you, Libertyville's got a good music scene. I've got a 17-year-old that slays guitar. It's my favorite thing to watch.
Yes, he's good.
I love it. But there's no doubt that the UK,
dark and
in proportion to its population of the amount of musical superstars over the decades, is way disproportionately larger than any other country.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, that's amazing.
Bring some with you to Florida.
Yeah,
I will. I'll try.
Yeah, for sure.
Hey, I hate to do this, but some of us got to work.
Yeah.
What?
About? Bill is not with us.
I've got a speech to give at a high school in 45 minutes. So
there you go. But, hey, Eric, about damn time. Come on.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Anytime. It was fun. It's really fun to be part of this.
You can just show up.
Yeah.
We're here every week. You can just show up.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Happy to have you.
Absolutely.
And I'm happy to share stories and just talk about movies and whatever.
Yeah.
And maybe you bring your son on, and Leonard and your son can riff.
I was thinking that, Leonard, when you started playing. I'll try to. He doesn't like solo performances, but I'll work on it.
That's all right. I'm a good jam partner. So
very good. Okay. Yeah, I will do that.
Yeah, just tell him to start learning the Benny Hill theme song.
Okay.
Oh my gosh.
That was perfect. That was great.
But hey, like I said, great having you. It's awesome to see Stephanie, you're back. Tom, Andreea, we see you all the time, but it's always good to see you. David, awesome to have you back. You have no excuses for not being on the show more often, dude. You suck. And then, of course, Marc, who doesn't say enough and is oddly one of the guys that we should learn from, who thinks that he can learn from us. It's a shame. Talk more, dude. But hey, thanks to our IoT Coffee Talk listeners, viewers. We really appreciate your viewership. Eric, again, anytime. Great having you. And follow us at www.iotcoffeetalk.com. IoTCoffeeTalk.com. Yes. Donate to Elevate Our Kids. We don't pocket a dime from the non-existent money that we make on the show. It all goes to this charity, okay? And what we're trying to do is truly address the digital divide and make a difference. So as you watch, you advocate our show, you're helping us address a big problem in our society, in our increasingly digital society. So we appreciate your viewership, and hopefully you'll donate. So check Elevate Our Kids out at www.elevateourkids.org, and then like, share, post, repost, and do all that great stuff. Share your thoughts, and we will see you next week.
Thanks, Leonard. Thanks, team.
See you later, guys. Bye now.
Adios.
Have a good rest of the week.
Bye bye.
See you guys.
Bye, everybody.